Hi guys, in this video I'm going to give some advice which at first glance might seem counterintuitive. In fact, it might not even seem logical. So bear with me, hear me out for a few seconds whilst I just explain what I'm going to say. Because I've lived many different places since I was a child. I've seen many people make this mistake when I was a kid, looking at grown-ups, since I've been an adult, moving around various different countries all my life. And my parents have even made these mistakes. So the mistake is asking people for a referral. Seems common sense, seems like logic, right? Not necessarily, no. What you really need to do is find someone on Google Maps or some place where there's so many reviews that they can't have just got a few friends, a few buddies to give them those reviews. The problem with getting one or two referrals on Facebook or other social networks or in a forum, one or two people is not good enough to take the risk of your capital, your time, and possibly a lot of stress. It's very, very easy to get someone to recommend you, or even a couple of people. They might even be the same people or in the same family. You don't know who is telling you this information on social media. The other thing is, negative voices often get battered down on social media. I've seen in groups in Panama, for example, people making veiled threats, just saying, oh, it's not good to, say negative things here, things like that. And at the end of the day, a lot of people get tired of trying to give out advice against people from bad experiences. So what I'm saying is, if you do want to go the social media route, ask for a referral, or you do want to look on a website that's made by an expert and it recommends someone. We're talking about a lawyer, it could be a window cleaner, a nanny, a pool person, it could be a decorator, it could be an architect, or it could be someone who's going to do some construction work. Now, I've got a few terrible stories to tell you about real things that have happened. So there was one person who got a referral about a house they wanted to get built. They actually went, they could see the other person's house and it was being built and it was coming along very nicely. And so they contracted this builder to build their house for them. Now, over the next year or two, what happened was the person who referred them, their project went ahead really well, nothing negative happened. However, their situation, their experience turned out to be a nightmare. This is the truth about how people operate, okay? People drive differently when there's a police car behind them. The majority, people carry out projects, building work, construction, all kinds of tasks to different levels generally, depending on who's supervising them, on what contract they've got. People are judging who they're working for all the time. Now, there are a very few people who work to their own ethical standards, no matter who they're doing the work for. But that's a very, very low percentage of people in the world. And that's not something you can rely on. Why take a risk? So risk is, in 4 words, risk is how probable and how costly. And when you're thinking about even a maid or a pool cleaning service, these things can turn out extremely costly in Panama because you don't know the laws. Even if you know the laws, a lot depends on the ethics of the other person involved. So when you get a recommendation or two, you don't know if that person's in debt to that person they're recommending. You don't know what reason they're recommending that person. There might be various selfish reasons. The other thing is, someone can do a good job. As I say, that could be because the person that they've worked for has enforced a very good contract or knows what they're doing, is kept on top of the situation. And often when people get a recommendation, they actually relax a bit. They take less care than they would with someone who they didn't know. They just pointed a dart at the phone book, as it were. And so that's the wrong approach. Like I say, you cannot rely on someone being an ethical person who treats everyone to a high standard. So let me just tell you another story. Like I say, I'm keeping them short to not make the video too long. If you employ a maid on any kind of basis that's regular, any kind of worker in your home, you then have obligations under the law to them. There are all kinds of regulations, okay? And even if they do something illegal, even if they do something terrible and you fire them, you still have obligations under the law. Okay? So you need to be aware. And at the end of the day, you can fight it out, but the best thing to do is to get a good person. And how you do that, first of all, you don't just get a recommendation of 1 or 2, 3 people on Facebook who happen to recommend the same person. I, for example, once tried to use a transport service that 3 people in a Facebook group recommended. When I got a bad service from them, guess what happened when those people started recommending that person again in the group? I said I'd had a bad experience and they tried to discredit me. So, I didn't persist. I don't need to waste my time, in Facebook on that. And I'm sure other people don't have time to do that. What you can do, however, is leave a review on Google Maps. Leave a review there, or on Trustpilot as well if it exists. You're looking for someone who's got a lot of reviews that are good, and then you want to review the worst reviews on there and see what's being said about the person. If there's only 6, 10 reviews, I don't recommend using the person. Find someone else who you've got reasonable evidence that does a good job. And then secondly, don't lower your guard just because someone's been recommended. Someone in my family, for example, used the heuristic of someone doing work for a church as meaning they were a good person. So they saw them working on this church, they asked them to go and do some construction for themselves, and guess what happened? Problems with trust, problems with conning, things stolen, all this kind of stuff. And just using a quick heuristic like that doesn't work. If it does, you're lucky. It's just as lucky as like I say, getting someone randomly off Google or out of the phone book. So my 2 recommendations are, first of all, be on your guard, know what you're doing. If you want to get advice, find out negative stories of what have happened to people who've employed a window cleaner, a maid, a babysitter, a lawyer, an architect, a builder, whatever it is. Get hold of the negative stories so you know what to watch out for. I always say it's best to know the cons and the tricks of the trade, not the rules in a game. You always need to be aware of the cons and the tricks so you can avoid them. So that's my advice. Like I say, a lot of people will just say, oh no, I'm happy with a recommendation or 2 off Facebook. Like I say, that's a totally flawed concept. You can use it to go and then check Google reviews or something, fine. But sooner or later, you're going to come a cropper. And you don't know who's recommending in Facebook. 2 or 3 people recommending one person. You don't know what history they've got. You don't know if they're going to get a discount on the next journey. You don't know if they're related to the person. You don't know if they're best friends with them. You don't know if they're an employee of the person. It's just not logical when you really, really think about it. If you think about it, it's not so important what their best behaviour was, what their best job that they've ever done was. What's important is what they are at their worst. What are the worst things they've done? What's important is how many bad jobs they've done, how many times they've left people down, stranded at the airport, how times they've been late to babysit, how many times they've stolen money, how many times the builder said they needed more than they needed, or not done what they needed. Things like that. I don't recommend trying to find 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 good reviews of someone. I recommend finding 30, 40 and seeing what the worst ones are and going off that as something that's useful and informative. There are a few instances where there aren't plentiful reviews online of a personal service. But I mean, if someone's babysitting, maybe they'll have some reviews enabled on Facebook if they're, entrepreneurial. If not, what I'm saying is do not treat the person as if they're recommended. Start from 0 and, verify, trust but verify, as President Reagan said. So, if you've got a babysitter or someone on your property, you need to have cameras and you need to maybe come back as a surprise early the first few times or have them babysit whilst you're elsewhere on the property, just so you can try and get to know what that person is like. And you certainly need to know where they live. You certainly need to interview them at their home so they know that you know where they live, and you certainly need to get a copy of their ID. That is perfectly normal in Panama, and anyone slightly dishonest will think that you're not very clever if you don't get a copy of the ID of someone that you're actually hiring to do work, no matter how informally. What you don't want to do is hire a maid and after 2 weeks discover that all your clothes have gone missing from the closet, and they come back and say, oh, I thought they were for throwing away, I donated them to the church. That's a true story. And what I'm saying is, even if you have people on your property, you can take precautions like keeping your valuables away and having closets or rooms locked that they have no business accessing. Also, as they say in Colombia, don't give papaya, don't show things that could tempt people, or they could tip off other people to come and rob. So that's another thing that people working on your property can do, is tip off others what's inside, you know, that you've got an iPad, you've got a new laptop, things like that. So yeah, it's not the dream life perhaps that you're expecting. It's common sense, and it will protect you and your family and things that you have, and save you a lot of stress and potentially a lot of money. And you know, at the end of the day, being careful will make your life a lot happier and stress-free. I hope that's been helpful for you. I know a lot of people will dismiss this advice, and I've restricted myself to not give too many lengthy examples, just keep it short and sweet. But I hope this video helps you avoid one of the big traps people fall into when they change country or they move house. It's just something to avoid because the downside is so big. Thanks for watching, and please click subscribe because there's a lot more I can share with you about discovering Panama.